Welcome back, everybody, to another video. This week, we're going to be having story time with Jam and Kenny. How you doing, Jam?
Chilling. I'm chilling. Reunited. Reunited.
And it feels so good.
I was gonna say that.
All right.
Words right out of my mouth.
All right. So, we've been doing videos recently where we talk about, like, the Disney movies and stuff and, like, weird fan theories, was one of our recent videos. But I wanted to look into what the beginning of these stories were. And they all have, I guess, some sort of beginning in either some old folklore, roots in a country's history, things like that. A lot of them were from the Brothers Grimm, and a lot of them were sort of derived, I guess, because they're very different. They're vastly different. And this first one that I want to talk about is, I think, one of the ones that's more similar to the Disney version that we grew up with as kids. Um, so it's very, very close to this one with some major differences, but I honestly think this is probably, like, from all the ones that I read, the one that's the most um, similar.
Like I said, it doesn't go. I feel like I mean, I've heard of this kind of stuff where it's particular with Disney movies, right? Where they have like all these fairy tales that they make, you know, like they Disneyfy, and they make
Yeah,
it a happy ending. Everything's all beautiful. And as an adult, when you say it out loud, what the story, what happens in the movie, what it's about, you're like, well, I mean, yeah, that's a little bit iffy. But
yeah.
you just chalk it down to, well, it was an old school tale, whatever. People back then, things were
Oh
different.
man, if if right now you're saying people back then were very different, some of these stories are gonna knock your boots off, bro. Because some of them are, I don't know, dude. They sound like somebody took a Disney story and made a 50 Shades of Grey version of the damn
Yeah,
story,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
And this is like, when we think about it, back in the day, we're like, oh, everybody was so uptight and shit. No, man, some of these stories are crazy.
No, they're loose with it. They're. This was a different time, man. You had nothing else to think about
Yeah,
but whatever the hell they were thinking about when they came out with some of these stories. I heard some of them, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna go into some of the ones that I've heard. I've never actually read any of them. I just would hear from somebody, or somebody would, or a friend would just go, Have you ever actually read the original story? It's fucked up. Like it's
yeah.
just like it's a lot of that kind of stuff. And I know Brothers Grimm, Hans Christian Andersen, like they come from like classic literary works, and like you said, sometimes folklore, and I don't know. It's interesting, man. I'm interested to see which one you're going to talk about first.
Bro,
And
it's so good that I heard you say Hans Christian Andersen, or Hans. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry.
yeah,
But yeah, it's the Little Mermaid. And to tell you this,
oh,
this was like
oh,
an hour and a half audiobook. I'm not even gonna tell you I read the story. It was an
that's
hour
pretty
and a
quick.
half audiobook.
That's pretty quick. That's a movie.
Yeah,
You're just listening to a
yeah.
movie.
You're at work, have your earbuds in, you're working, listening. I recommend it. It's on YouTube because it's in the public domain now. The original story, so anybody's free to take it, flip it, whatever you want to do with it. So the guys who did Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, maybe The Little Mermaid next.
That's
Um,
merch. That's
yeah,
merch right there, right?
yeah, yeah. And so yeah, it's The Little Mermaid. Uh, and as we remember, The Little Mermaid, Ariel, correct?
You don't
Everybody's
know
favorite
Ariel?
redhead fish.
Everybody's favorite.
Yeah. So in the original story, just to start off with something very different, none of the characters have names. None of the characters have names.
There's no Prince Eric. There's no Ariel. Is that what you're saying?
Nope. There's a little mermaid. The mermaid's older sisters, which I think there's five of them. There's her five older sisters, and each of them is the first oldest, second oldest, the much, and so like that. There's
Hmm.
there's no King Trident. It's
Yeah.
just their father. So let me read you a passage from the book, and this is a scene describing what the five sisters do uh, on their free time. On many an evening, the five sisters would link arms together and raise in a row above the water. They had lovely voices, more beautiful than any human beings, and when a storm was coming on, and they thought some ships would be lost. All right, talk about if the girls thought the ships were gonna sink. They would swim before the ships and sing most beautifully of how pretty it was at the bottom of the sea, and bade for the seafarers not to be afraid of coming down there. So they were singing "Don't be afraid to die," which I think is where, I don't know if you've seen movies where they talk about like the sirens call to your death and all that shit.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
This,
say.
yeah, it was very reminiscent. But they could not understand their words. They thought it was the storm. So the sailors just thought it was the storm. Nor did they see any beautiful things down there either. For when the ship sank, they were drowned, and only as dead corpses did they ever reach the Sea King's palace. Bruh, that is some dope ass writing, in my very humble opinion.
Yeah,
That,
I mean it. I wonder if the whole. So I'm assuming the whole. Uh, it's like his interpretation of that, the whole sirens and the singing and luring them, sailors to their deaths and that kind of deal. I'm
yeah.
wondering if that was derived from this. If this was, in other words, is this an original thought or is that something that he just kind of like,
Well,
this is my version of that?
I think it
I'm
might.
assuming that.
I think it might have been his version because in Homer's Odyssey they talk about Homer tying himself to the mast so that the sirens wouldn't um, get
Lure him.
everybody. Yeah, they cover their ears so they wouldn't all jump off of the ship and die. So I think this is just his version of that, which was fucking metal as fuck. You know, and we like in the Little Mermaid we see her rescue the prince from uh, I guess a shipwreck. But it's very different because we actually in this one get confirmation. I think because I don't think in the Disney one we have confirmation of Ariel's age, and everybody goes like, "Oh, it's this, it's that, it's this and that." But in this one, they confirm that when the Little Mermaid meets the prince, she is in fact 15, and he is a year older than her, so he's 16.
All right.
All right. So
So
when
far, so
everybody's
good.
like, people in the Disney movies where people go like, oh, the girls are 15 and then the dudes are like in their 30s that they're meeting and getting together with. So, and listen to this story, they, for the time, 15 and 16-year-olds would get married and shit, So, um, but she saves him. And if you remember in the Disney version of it, she takes him up onto the shore, same as she does in the book. But he's found by his, I guess, servants in the Disney story.
Mm-hmm.
What differs in the Hans Christian Andersen is that he's found by a couple girls, and this is very important for later in the story. So it's very important that he was found by some girls that were, I think, roughly his age.
All right.
So, Ariel goes back down, talks about what happened, tries to figure out how am I going to get back up there. Same with Ariel. All right, so Ariel's going to be Ariel, and the Little Mermaid's going to be a Little Mermaid going forward. So just like Ariel, she goes, I need to find a way up there. So who does Ariel go to?
The Sea Witch or the
The
whatever.
Sea Witch. And who does the Little Mermaid go to?
So Ariel goes to Ursula, and then the Little Mermaid goes to, I'm assuming, the Sea Witch. That's what's
Yeah, they're both the Sea Witch. Again, it's just no name, which to me is wild that you have a story with people with no names. I've never heard that. That's crazy to me. But so she makes a deal, the same thing. We have the same deal. Like you need to go up there. He needs to fall in love with you and kiss you, right? We hear in these Disney movies the power of true love's first kiss. And so that's very similar to the story. So this is another part where the story sort of breaks apart, but is kind of the same in that Ariel ultimately, well, Ariel misses her shot at the beginning, correct?
Mm-hmm.
As we saw in the Disney movie, she goes out with him. She hangs around. They sort of do that. I think they call it Nurse Nightingale syndrome, where like he saved her and then she nurses him back to health. He nurses her back to health, and he falls in love with her, and then she falls in love with him, like the nurses during World War II and stuff like that. So
Right.
this is sort of similar to that, in that and she fell in love with him, but in nursing her, uh, he fell in love with her. So just like with Ariel, um, the prince ultimately falls in love with somebody else. Correct. We saw that in the Little Mermaid by Disney, he falls in love with Ursula, who disguises herself as a human and uses Ariel's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because that's what Eric knew about Ariel in the story, was her
Well, he
voice.
thought that was Ariel.
Yeah, because he remembers her voice when she's talking to him and being like, "Hey, wake up." Because that's how he recognized her. And so in this story, he actually falls in love with the girl that found him. The prince attributes the Little Mermaid's actions saving him to somebody else. Except in this
Okay.
case, she can't communicate. So, we go on. Prince Eric is gonna get married, right? At the end of the movie, we see they're having the wedding and all that, and Ariel and the fish all interrupt the thing. But in this one, um, she speaks to her sisters, and her sisters see that she's not going to do it. So her sisters try to convince the Little Mermaid to come back down. She doesn't want to go. She wants her soul, and the shortcut that was given to her was having this guy fall in love and turning her into a human. Ariel was after love. So I think what happens in the original one is it's more like a moral story of like, hey, don't take shortcuts. Whereas in like all the Disney movie, it's true love conquers all.
Yeah.
So those are a little bit of a different morals. And I want to get into that. And I wanted to bring that up first before we go to the conclusion of both stories, because we know that the Little Mermaid has her happy ending. It was a difficult one. She had to, overcome a lot of obstacles, but ultimately she falls in love. We see that her father gives up his power to Ursula. Remember, to break the curse, break the
Right.
spell, right? And then a whole fight ensues. Blah blah blah. Then the king, with his power, gives her legs. Love was able to make it all right.
Yeah.
If I told you, if I asked you how you thought um, the original Little Mermaid ended, what would you think?
I mean, if I'm knowing that it's kind of darker,
Yeah, substantially
uh,
darker.
I would assume that they don't all make it. Maybe the prince dies, or she dies, or the father dies, or fucking all of them die. I don't know.
It,
Uh,
not too far off. But like I said, the the Little Mermaid sisters are trying to get her the spell broken so that she doesn't die, because they're seeing that she's not gonna get this dude to fall in love with her. This dude's already set to marry somebody else. His mind is made up. So it's sort of like when you have a friend and you're like, "Hey, you shouldn't do that," and they're like, "No, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna happen." Right? And you're like, "I don't think you should do it, but let me give you an out." She is stubborn. She goes, "No, I'm gonna get this fool to fall in love with me. I'm gonna get my soul." So the sisters do what any friend would do. They try to come up with a way, and so they give up in a deal with the same sea witch. They give up something that's important to them. And since they don't have any surface things like that, what's important to them is actually their hair. It's long, beautiful mermaid hair, just like you see Ariel has in the movie.
how they gonna pop out of the water
Yeah, and go,
majestically?
psh, it's just gonna be like. Pee, pee, pee.
Yeah, just
So
come
they
out like a
give up their
dolphin.
hair and they come up to the Little Mermaid. with a dagger. All right. And they tell the Little Mermaid, look, he's not gonna fall in love with you. There's nothing you can do. They're trying to convince her. And I'm paraphrasing. Come back down and live with us. We love you. We want you here. We are your sisters, right? They're fucking laying it on thick. And they hand her the dagger. And what do you think they want her to do with the dagger? You already know.
Kill the prince, or
Yes. But there's more to it than you just have to kill the guy. She has to kill the guy and then slather her legs with his blood to turn back to a mermaid.
To turn back to a mermaid.
Yes, so that the spell doesn't kill her. Because if she doesn't get him to fall in love and she kisses him, and he kisses her with love, she's gonna die. And like we said at the beginning, all that's left is foam, right?
Yeah.
So this girl is getting ready to do this. She's like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. This is gonna happen. But ultimately, she decides not to do it. Right?
She decides not to.
She decides not to kill him. She goes, I can't do this to him. Because she sees that like her thing isn't worth somebody else, right? So ultimately she does die. She does die. She turns to foam, and then that sea foam disappears.
And that's the end?
Thank God it's not. Thank God it's not. Because I've always heard that was the ending. She turns to foam and goes away. There's actually... She also gets a happy ending, which is, I think, awesome. Because you don't think she would get a happy ending, right? But with magic, we don't know how magic works, right? So she's actually rewarded for not killing him. So what happens is, as she dies and she turns into foam, the foam starts to disappear because she becomes what's called in the story a daughter of air. And they don't say anything about the daughters of air, so I can't tell you what they are. I honestly can't. But she becomes a daughter of air, and through that transformation, she's actually given 300 years to do good deeds for humans so that she can also gain her soul.
So she has to do time for 300 years.
She has 300 years of good deeds.
Just helping humans out, maybe saving them or whatever, and then she gets a soul at that point?
Yeah.
I guess that's a happy ending.
Right?
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like she's a genie. She becomes like a genie.
Kind of, I guess. I don't know how she would help. They don't talk about any of it. It's like, she got 300 years to do this. Can she do it? Probably. So to me, it was like, okay, that was wild. That was a wild ride. So she technically doesn't die, it seems. It seems that she goes through a transformation, but she turns into foam.
She evolves
as part of that transformation. Yeah.
Something greater.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a roller coaster, my man. Hearing all of this for the first time, I was like, I can see why Disney changed it for the children.
I mean, Disney's going to change it. I mean, I'm assuming some people have anyone tried to come out and like make the original version of it, or at least something close. I mean, there has to have been.
It was, and I remember
she becomes it until the end.
Yeah, I remember seeing it, and I'm gonna give you the name of the movie. It's called Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid, and it was Japanese.
It's Japanese.
It's Japanese, dude.
See,
Japanese Little Mermaid with all this shit happening in it.
They would come out with that.
Yeah.
No happy endings over there.
Oh yeah, have you seen the ending of Neon Genesis Evangelion, bro?
Neon what?
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, dude, that is. If you want to hear a fucked up story, that's a fucked up story, dude. That is one fucked up story. Again, it's a really good story. If you haven't heard it, the audiobook's an hour and a half. It's for free on YouTube. Go give it a listen. Make sure your ad block is off. Because it's a great story. And you know what? I think you could make this... I think this could have been the Disney movie. It honestly could have been the Disney movie. Aside,
No,
yeah,
no,
dude,
no, man. They're not making a cartoon where all this stuff's going down.
but it could have
These
been,
his
you
sisters
know.
are like shit. Yeah, it could have been anything. Could have been. It's not happening.
Oh, bro, and if you think her sisters had it bad, I read the original Cinderella story. Um, oh, poor sisters in that one.
And
Poor sis-
judging how the Little Mermaid turned out, I'm pretty sure Disney's thinking, yeah, no, I think we did the right thing. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. We don't think it would have been the same blockbuster
Yeah, yeah,
had
no,
she
no,
died at the end of the movie.
no. I don't think kids would be playing this on repeat.
You know what though? You know what it is? It's the sequel factor. You can't have a sequel if the Little Mermaid dies. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
you can't make a movie
Not
about
that the sequels
air
were all
over
that great,
300
but
years.
no,
Oh,
that's their staple is happy endings. You know, it's
and
all.
part twos.
Yeah, I mean, but even though that wasn't like that's not the reason why the Little Mermaid is so great.
No,
It's
no, no,
but
no.
it's like they have a formula. They definitely have a
Yeah,
formula, and it's still working out for them. And now they have a Pixar formula, and that's working out for them.
yeah.
I
That
mean, they've gotten a little bit into the more adult like themes with their animation.
yeah.
Just
But
not quite there.
what really was weird to me was like we hear about like the past and they're like, oh, everybody was so puritanical, everybody was so uptight, everybody was so religious, and you read shit like this and you're like, god damn, what was happening in religion back then?
I
A
mean,
lot,
it's all
actually.
out
Yeah,
there, man. It's
there
all
was a
out
lot
there.
of shit happening.
I mean, that's another video.
That's another video series.
Yeah, yeah,
But I do Pinocchio too. I want to do Pinocchio next. Can I tell you about Pinocchio's original story next?
yeah. Oh
All
yeah,
right.
I mean, we could talk about all of them, but where you want to do this now?
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no, no. This, I think we could turn this into a series where we'll do Pinocchio next. So you guys heard it here. We're doing Pinocchio next. Come back. Maybe not next week, but the week after while I do some research and comparisons.
there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah. So join us again next week for another video. We might bring you Pinocchio, we might not. But we'll bring you some more entertainment. Thank you guys so much again for joining us this week. Drop a like. If you have a story you want to hear about, drop it in the comments. If you're new here and you enjoyed the video, give us a follow. And I'll say we're just going to leave you with peace.
Peace.